Good afternoon, welcome to Italy and welcome to the launch of the all-new Ferrari Portofino. Very excited to bring this content to you. When this car launched at Frankfurt, I couldn't get over the massive aesthetic change over the Ferrari California. As soon as I saw it and I heard about the engine upgrades, I was really excited to drive it. That event was in September, it seems like it was only 5 minutes ago, and now we're here and I'm going to immerse you firsthand in what it's like to drive the all-new Ferrari Portofino. So let's have a quick look around the other specs and cars which are here, and then hop in our own car and immerse you in this brand new retractable hardtop. Let's hit it. The all-new Ferrari Portofino. We are here in the delightful Italian countryside. The sun is shining, it's February. I am ecstatic and thankful to be here. So, what have we got? Well, a little bit of context. This car is the successor to the Ferrari California and California T. Now, the significance of that car is that it's accounted for around about 20 to 25% of Ferrari's cars sales. So despite what you think of the California, it is actually a really significant car for Ferrari as a brand. Now, let's not beat around the bush. The California has always been the softer car from the Ferrari lineup, especially when it launched. It had the 458 Italia and Ferrari F12 as its brothers, and they are a hell of a lineup to look up to. But things have changed. The world has moved on. Ferrari as a brand is going quite strongly turbocharged, particularly with its 488 GTB, and this is following suit. Now, what's interesting is this is an evolution of the engine that is in the Ferrari California T. That car, when I first drove it, it was just a bit of a non-event for me. It wasn't a particular, it didn't give me the Ferrari fizz that I typically associate with being in this brand. I think when you approach these cars, the mere mention of the word Ferrari sort of draws up these connotations which have been founded in history based on passion, performance, soul, just almost tangible energy of what these cars will feed back to its driver. And while the original California had a naturally aspirated V8 engine, and it kind of made up for its softer GT traits by having audible delight, the California T for me fell short and basically was a lovely Grand Tourer, but lacked the sort of sparkle that I typically expect out of a prancing horse. This, however, on paper, things in the engine department don't look too different, but of course, us as humans, as bags of sensors, these little details actually affect us emotionally way more than when we read them on paper. So we're actually now only 40 brake horsepower more. Doesn't sound a great deal, and so we're now up to 600 horsepower. Now you got to remember, this is Ferrari's entry-level car. If you're gonna get into a Ferrari, the California T, at least, for me, isn't necessarily what you might expect. It's not the connotations which are drawn up when you get inside one. I'm sure you can tell this is a very different story. The torque is lovely. It is a really thick swell of very usable torque, mated to that dual clutch 7-speed gearbox. What is lovely is when you put this thing in sport on the Manettino, you're getting those nice reassuring taps in the back upon upshifting. There's almost this subtle 488 GTB feel about the drivetrain, and it actually sounds like a 488 too. So the audible delight is back. Now, it's not naturally aspirated, but for a turbo engine, I think it sounds fantastic. So this channel's all about driving, and we are in a Ferrari, and even though it's positioned as their daily GT car, very much still has sprinkles of DNA that have come from history of performance. Check it out. Wow. Lovely. It's the torque. You really engine, it does not rev out quite as high as their naturally aspirated counterparts. Now, one of the beautiful traits of an engine like that is that you can scream it right out. But where the turbocharged engine makes up for it, and this wonderful gearbox, is that you're constantly shifting because it runs out of steam just before 8,000 RPM. But with a gearbox like this, it's very playful. You're really up and down it, and you're playing it like an instrument. Just listen to how fast it shifts, right? So we're in second now, third, fourth, and you're compelled again to shift back down, and now we're into second. And on tight, twisty roads like this, it's so playful. Of course, this car takes on a whole new life of its own because this is a retractable hardtop convertible. So with the press of this button here, in 14 seconds, we now have an entirely different driving experience. And then you're in a whole new world. Gearbox is so good. So there's something interesting. Earlier on I was talking about the amount of torque that this car has. Ferrari have implemented a system which basically manages the torque in each gear you're in. So you don't have 100% of torque available all of the time, and that at first might sound like you're being shortchanged, but in actual fact it allows you to get the most traction possible because it optimizes the amount of torque in first, second, third gear to apply the most amount of traction to the floor. If this thing gave you all of the torque it's got, you just spin up the wheels, so you've always got a lovely amount of traction, even though by the ECU you're not necessarily using as much torque as there is available. Very trick, you wouldn't know it was there, but when you feel that swell of torque, you're really thankful for it. Funnily enough, the road surface we're on right now, particularly slippy, and it just puts that traction down in. It's gorgeous. So the biggest takeaway for me, first of all, the difference, the changes in this car over the Cali T is so much bigger than I expected. I'll say it straight, I just wasn't a fan. The California T for me just really missed the mark in terms of, look, it was a very good car, but for me it didn't represent what the badge stands for me. This car, very similar engine, but whatever magic dust they've sprinkled on it back at Maranello has worked wonders. You've heard it, you've just heard that thing firsthand. It sounds much more like a 488. It handles beautifully. You know, there's not a great deal to criticize. It's just a lovely environment to be. And I think if this was the first Ferrari you experienced, I think they've gone a long way since the California to embody the Ferrari ethos in their entry-level car than they did do with the previous California. And I think that is something not to be underestimated. To be able to get into a Ferrari this good at 166 grand, don't get me wrong, by the time you put options on it, it's going to be pushing 200. But still, by the time you've got in it, I think you're really immersing yourself in the beginnings of what this fantastic brand feels like. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time. Ciao!